We have come to Hebrews part 34, verse by verse study. Plan for today, we would review diagrams, big picture, to gain a big picture, and few foundational verses and recap what we did last presentation. And then we continue Hall of Faith as Hebrews writer walks us through different persons and personalities. And the first part, first half of the chapter deals with patriarchs. So we're going to cover patriarchs, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And then if we have time, we will also touch upon Moses. But let's see how we do with the time. And scriptures we would be dealing with Hebrews 11, verses 20 to 29. Let's see a few foundational verses. Now, the faith is so important. The belief is so important under the new covenant. Romans 3, 21 to 22. This is a new kind of righteousness under new covenant that is called righteousness of God. Let's see the verse 21. But now the righteousness of God without or outside the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Jesus Christ, unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. So them that believe, this is the fundamental, this is foundation for new covenant righteousness. And belief is so important, even to begin this kind of righteousness. And as we grow, our belief gets strengthened and our faith grows and grows. And perhaps it will reach a point where it will grow to be a mountain, unmovable. That is our goal. And there is no difference. Any person of any background, from any country, any language, he or she can exercise this faith, the belief. In Greek, the same word is used for faith as well as belief. Believe is the verb form and faith is the noun form. So it's basically same. One is the verb action and other is the description of what you possess, that is faith. And Romans 10 verses 9 to 8, this is again Apostle Paul expounds and introduces this new covenant righteousness in Romans, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shall believe in thine heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart a man believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. So if you believe in the cross, the sinless life of Jesus Christ, and his death on horrible crucifixion on cross, and his resurrection after 3 days, ascension to heaven, and sitting on the right hand side of the Father, and opening up the way to Father's presence, a new and living way that he has consecrated for us. If you believe that, then that is righteousness. That is the beginning of God's righteousness. Within your heart, deep within your heart, you believe that core gospel of Jesus Christ unto righteousness. And after believing, it would not stay within your heart, but it comes out in form of your words and your works and your walk. So, and with mouth, confession is made unto salvation. So your internal changes and internal belief is now coming out externally as metaphorically confession is made, and when that they become also external as a true reflection of internals, then you are going towards salvation, that is presence of Father in New Jerusalem. And it's a fascinating subject, and I think we would be learning about this subject all through our lives, but still there will be pages unturned, still yet to learn. So far, we have learned few points from the last presentation, and we dealt with few patriarchs, and they obtained a good report from God because of their faith. So God is coming out and speaking um, and giving a witness, a testimony that these people are faithful. So God is attesting to their faith. What a great thing that can happen to any man or a woman. And who wouldn't want to be in this category when God comes and says, "Great is your faith." And and second is obedience is the integral part of faith. When you have faith and there is no obedience, that is a dead faith. But we are talking about a living faith, the faith that has works. And by faith, Abel gave a more excellent sacrifice than his brother Cain because of his obedience. So the faith did not stay within his heart, but it came out in terms of action, and the right action based on obedience. And then he was counted among the righteous Abel, because he demonstrated this essential faith for salvation. And Hebrews author also established the fact that without faith, it is impossible to please God. So all these patriarchs, all the people in chapter 11, they pleased God because of their faith. That's why we are in the hall of faith. And God was so pleased, he came back and gave a good report. In Greek, it is actually good witness. God is witnessing to their faith. And verse point 4, they looked for a city whose builder and maker is God. So they were looking to New Jerusalem. That was a much fascinating statement in itself. Abraham was looking to this city, New Jerusalem, and he was aware of this city, and he was gearing himself, aligning himself to go to that city in this new and living way that was consecrated for us. So he's walking in that narrow and tribulation filled way to reach to this heavenly city. And they despised shame in the present world. When you are in truth, when you are with God or his son, you will be put to shame in this world. And but nevertheless, they did not care about this shame. They did something reverse to that shame. They despised the shame, and yet were seeking the city and the presence of God and the salvation. So when they despised or endured the shame from the present in the present world, then God does something in return to them. God was not ashamed of them because they sought a better country. And in fact, last presentation, we learned that God was not ashamed to call himself as their God because they endured the shame of the current world. So these are mutually exclusive. Uh, you can't have a great name uh, in the world and also a great name with God. They're impossible combination. In fact, the scriptures attest to the fact that whichever thing or a person is highly exalted among men is an abomination to God. It's just a cutting statement. So it eliminates lots of people, men and women, who have highly exalted status in the current time, current world, but that is abomination. So if you are going in that direction, or you are there, you are already in that abomination, a danger area. But these people, the patriarchs, they despised the shame, and they did not go back to the world, but they looked forward and pressed forward to New Jerusalem in faith and in obedience. And they are convicted deep within their hearts, even though they do not see this heavenly city, yet they believed. That is the another ingredient of faith. You don't demand evidence, you don't demand a sense based evidence that you have to see with your physical eyes, you have to hear with your ears, or with the touch you have to handle. Then only you believe that a thing exists. But Jesus said, blessed are those who do not see physically or perceive, yet believe, and order their lives in align themselves with the gospel, with the word of God, and cruise through this journey of faith. And finally, last point, they all died in faith without obtaining promises. All the patriarchs, they did not obtain promise. They have not reached New Jerusalem when they died, but they all died in faith. That's an incredible statement. And brethren, how do we want to die, you and me, when time comes for us to die and hit the grave? Should we be dying in faith, or should we be dying without faith? That makes a big difference. Let us all work and persevere so that when the time comes, this holds true for us, that we die in faith and ready to be resurrected. And where God is not ashamed to call himself as our God, and God is so pleased that he will come and give a good report, good witness of our faith, so that we would be resurrected, and everything goes well, where we would live with him in this heavenly city, that is New Jerusalem. So faith is very essential ingredient, without which we will not have salvation. This is because the new covenant righteousness, it has four pillars. The righteous judgment and justice is the first, and second is mercy, the forgiveness. You have to forgive, learn to forgive, and walk in the path of forgiveness, because you have received a huge forgiveness from God in his son, and there is no way of holding grudges. And third is faith. It is one of the pillars according to Jesus. And agape love, to love God and keep his commandments. So, and let's see some of the things we are going through this. And this way is the way, and living way, that is consecrated for us. And this is the way that is narrow, or it is cramped, so narrow, you have to walk with lots of discomfort and difficulties. And this way is also a way of tribulations. It's lots of difficulties. Sometimes it's shameful to walk because it is not popular. But this way that leads to life. This is a way of justice and righteous judgment of God. This is a way of mercy and forgiveness, fully practiced. And this is also a way of faith. Without faith, you cannot walk in this way. And finally, it is also the way of agape love, to love God and keep his commandments and walk in his commandments. All four are fulfilled in this way. But this way, the faith kicks in because nothing in this, above this line, is visible. These are all invisible to man. And things that are not visible, yet you are convicted and you are seeking your life to seek these things, to pursue these things, to reach here. Here, we are here under Jesus Christ, who is sitting on the right hand side of the Father. So this is our destiny. This is our goal. If you believe gospel, if you work towards it, so faith can be grown as strong as a mountain that cannot be moved. In fact, Abraham obtained that kind of faith when God tested him to sacrifice his only begotten son, Isaac, which who arrived after a long, long time. And then Abraham, his faith has grown so much and it is unmovable. And when God asked him to sacrifice, he did not think twice. He just took Isaac and and took him to that mountain, the designated place, to sacrifice his son. And scriptures actually gave us insight into what was happening in the heart and mind of Abraham. He did not stagger at the promises of God. He actually believed in faith that God will raise up his son even if he sacrificed, because God has promised that through his son the multitude of nations and people, as many as sand of the sea and stars of heaven, innumerable multitude would come. And God has already promised that many, many years before. So all the promises somehow helped him, and he built his faith around the promises of God, and he achieved that level of faith. It doesn't matter whatever God says, he obeys. See, the obedience is the integral part of faith, and he demonstrated the faith in such a huge way. God came and called him Father of the Faithful. Father of the Faithful. Not everybody has that kind of faith built over time. There is a time in the beginning of Abraham's journey, uh, he was not that strong in faith, but he grew from smaller faith to bigger faith to greater faith, so that he could accomplish. But others may not have that good curve of the development. Some have somewhat faltered, and some almost on their deathbed before they die, few minutes or maybe few hours before they actually died, their faith was perfected. And we will see some of those examples. So some would postpone their faith, and God is so merciful. He moves and engineers something. Boom, they understand in one instance, and their faith gets so high, they graduate in this faith. So that we have different kinds of scenarios of growth of faith and the trail of faith. Let us see a few examples. Hebrews 11 verse 20, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. So Hebrews writer started with Abel, then he went to Enoch, then Noah, and then Abraham. So he was going in sequence, chronological. And the next logical person he picks up is Isaac, son of Abraham. So Isaac blesses Jacob and Esau, both are his sons, concerning things to come. We will see how Isaac has issues with his faith and how he kind of wavers a bit, and finally how he graduates in his faith. This is fascinating. You might like some of these verses, which we are going to see. Let us pick up the story in Genesis 27, verses 1 to 7. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, he was old, and his eyes were dim, his vision has gone down, so that he could not see. Then at that point, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here I am. So Esau said, Behold, here I am. So Isaac knew that he's going to die. Most people, not only Christians, even outside non-Christians, when they are closer to death, they are about to die, they knew that somehow there is some cue that comes from within the body, within their hearts and minds, that they are wrapping up this physical life and they are going to die. That's fascinating. That's another subject. And Isaac is one of them. He was old and his eyes were dim. And then it is time to bless his children because he got this birthright from Abraham. And in Isaac, thy seed shall be called. And the whole birthright flows from Isaac, not Ishmael. Ishmael is gone, and his mother, Hagar, are thrown out, but Sarah remained, and Isaac remained. And Isaac is the promised seed through which the whole multitude of blessings and birthright would flow. Now it is time for him to go. He has to give this birthright to his children. And now Esau is his favorite son. And he loved Esau so much. Esau would be a more manly, more robust, more hairy person. And he's probably well built. And he can go and hunt like a hunter, mighty hunter. And he can bring the game back to home. And he can serve his father with delicious meals. And his father loved those meals and loved his oldest son, uh, Esau. And on the other hand, Jacob was not that. He's more like a sophisticated person. He's more fine-tuned, not rugged like Esau. And he's not very well impressive to Isaac. And but Jacob's mother, Rebecca, loved Jacob more. Maybe it suits her mindset. You have to be gentle, like I know women love men like a teddy bears, like who are soft, feather touched. Perhaps, I do not know. But we see tremendous partiality between among from parents. I grew up with the assumption that parents would never show any partiality to their children, but then you see in your real life there is big partiality. But interestingly, God also tells us through scriptures the partiality uh, is the norm, and if somebody doesn't show partiality, they are exception to the rule. So let me read further. And he said, that is Isaac, to Esau, Behold, now I am old, and I know not the day of my death. I do not know which day I would die, but I know I am very near to that. Now, therefore, take, I pray thee, thy weapons, that is your hunting instruments, and thy quiver and thy bow, and go out to the field and take me or bring me some venison, and make me savory meat such as I love. You know how that has to be prepared, that I love, you learned over the years, and bring it to me that I may eat, and that my soul may bless thee before I die. So it's time to pass on the birthright. And Rebecca is Isaac's wife, heard when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son. She was eavesdropping. And Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. And Rebekah spoke unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison, and make me savory meat, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord before my death. So he wants to bless Esau before the Lord prior to his death. We continue, these are in sequence. Genesis 27. Now, therefore, my son, this is still Rebekah speaking to Jacob. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. Now, Rebekah, as a wife, knows the stomach and appetite of her husband, so she can easily prepare a meal very convincing that it is from Esau. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. And Jacob said unto Rebekah his mother, Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, not a blessing. So Jacob was afraid, little bit apprehensive to do this game, to this cheating game. And instead of blessing, I may end up getting big curse if he finds me out. So he was hesitant, but his mother was kind of encouraging him and prompting him to do this. And of course, Jacob at this point is not worried about doing this deceptive act. His worry was being found out, but nevertheless, he is part of the game. And verse 13, and his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse, my son. Only obey my voice and go fetch me them. So she said, I'll take that curse. If he curses you, I will take that curse upon me, but you don't worry about that. I don't know how that happens, but that's what she said. And he went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made a savory meat such as his father loved. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau. Now she's preparing the makeup portion which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob, her younger son. And we'll continue Genesis 27. And she put the skin of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon his smooth of his neck and his hands. That's where Isaac, uh, almost blind, legally blind by this time, uh, to convince him. And she gave the savory meat and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came into his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. So this is where Jacob tells the lie and begins this scheme. And I have done according as thou badest me, what you asked me. Arise, I pray thee, and sit and eat my venison, that thy soul may bless me. So he's an impostor, and he's pretending to be Esau. And Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly? Because it takes time, right, to hunt and to get the catch and then bring the game home and cook it and do all the preparations and then bring it to. So Isaac was suspicious, and so quickly, how could you get it, my son? And he said, Because the Lord thy God brought it to me. So another second lie, he adds. And verse 21, and Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee. So Isaac is not trusting. He wants to feel with his hands, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. That's his suspicion. He wants to make sure it is Esau. Then only he's going to bless. He's determined and he's suspicious second time. And Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and Isaac felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are hands of Esau. Here it goes. There is first intuition is right most times, but we override intuition and yield to the lie. That's a thought. Genesis 27 verses 23-30, it's a continuation. And he discerned him not. So he failed to discern who this person is, because his hands were hairy and his brother's hands as his brother's hands. So he blessed him. So the evidence, the deceiver, the liar can create more evidences. And nevertheless, truth stands out. The false witness, when he or she tells the lies, they do not agree. Somewhere there is some disagreement, but people are hasty. People are like, don't take a step back and try to harmonize. Is that really true? It takes lots of effort to find out the truth. And the lies always seem to be truthful. And here Isaac falls, and he said, art thou my very son Esau? And Jacob said, I am. The third time he lies. And verse 25, and he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. So he brings the meal, and he brought it near him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. So he has bread, wine, and the meal. And his father Isaac said unto him, come near now, kiss me, my son. And Jacob comes near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment. So Rebecca probably knows the smell of Isaac's raiment. So maybe she used one of the raiments of Esau's raiments. We don't know how it played out. So even the smell, I mean, Isaac, if you see, his vision is down. So he uses his ears, hearing, he uses his smell, and he also used his touch. So he's banking on his senses, not in discernment. And see, the smell of my son is the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. So he's completely convinced. The plot has completely worked. And here the blessing goes to Jacob. It is the birthright that is, and all the associated blessings with the physical, with the birthright. Therefore, God gave thee the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and the nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blessed thee. What a tremendous birthright blessings associated, and they all go to Jacob. And it come to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of the blessings, he finished the blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father. Almost he is leaving the presence of his father. Maybe he opened the door and he is just leaving, and then enters Esau. Then Esau his brother came in from his hunting. We are continuing. And he also had made savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn, Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, Who? He was shocked and he trembled and he quaked exceedingly. And And where is he that had taken venison and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him. Yeah, and he shall be blessed, because I already given blessing. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, and Isaac replied, Thy brother came with subtlety and has taken away thy blessing. And he said, that is most likely Esau, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me, Father? He's asking. And one point I want to take a step back and want to say a thing here. When Isaac trembled very exceedingly, something happened to him. God's Spirit convicts him of what he was planned to do is so wrong. It is against God's will. God made him plain to both Rebecca as well as Isaac that the blessing and line has to go to Jacob even before they were born, even when they are in the womb of their mother. It was predetermined, which we will shortly see, and they plainly ignored, at least Isaac, and he somehow ignored and perhaps forgot. Perhaps his love with his oldest son, he wanted to bless anyway. And because of his favoritism, because of his culture around him, it all goes like the oldest son, the firstborn, is held in highest esteem. So he bought into the environment around him, and he also yielded some of the fleshly lusts, lust of the flesh, all the pleasant venison that his son would bring him, and all the manly figure and stature his oldest son has. So he kind of moved away from God's will, having known, and suddenly he realized that in spite of he ignored and tried to do his own way, yet God mysteriously makes sure that God's will is executed no matter what. He blessed Jacob, and suddenly he realizes that it is right thing that Jacob has to be blessed and Esau should not be blessed. That's why Isaac Isaac uh, Isaac would not be apologizing or any sorry or remorse from this point, because his faith suddenly graduated, and he graduated with the conviction of God's Spirit within him. The right thing has happened. He should have done right thing, but now at least God has, in His mercy, accomplished the right thing. And He says, uh, let's see next. And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy Lord. He's pretty plain forward. So Jacob would be Lord of Esau, and all his brethren I have given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. What shall I do now unto thee, my son? It's all over, it's all done. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of earth and the dew of heaven from above, and thy sword, by thy sword shalt thou live, and shall serve thy brother. That is not going away. He has to serve Jacob. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So there will be a point when that yoke would be gone. He would be free from this yoke of Jacob on him. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand, and then I will slay my brother Jacob. So that's what. Let's see the background, what happened, what God ahead of times told them very clearly. Uh, God says, Genesis 25, we were in 27 until up to now. I'm going 2 chapters previously. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. So Rebecca was barren, and they are no, they don't have children. So Isaac was praying to God, uh, you have blessed us with the promises, but we still don't see any child, any offspring from us. So he was praying to God, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebecca, his wife, conceived. So based on his faith and his prayer, God listens, and Rebecca conceives. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, If it be so, why am I thus? If God has heard my prayer and Isaac's prayer, and finally he is giving us son, why should this happen to me? In those times, you don't have many medical facilities. For a woman to be pregnant, it is a life and death, 50-50 chances. And she came to inquire of the Lord. So now Rebecca is also inquiring of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, Two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other, and elder shall serve the younger. So God makes it very clear here what's going to happen even before they were born. And when her days to be delivered are fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first one first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. There itself you have partiality. And Jacob sought pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said unto Jacob, Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. So he was after that red pottage, whatever lentil soup. His name is called Edom, sorry. And Jacob said, Sell me this day thy birthright. So, and Esau said, Behold, I am at the point of death. What profit shall this bring do to me? So he thought, like, I'm almost at the point of fainting and dying. What good is this birthright? Let me sell it out. And and Jacob said, Swear me to me this day. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. And then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. This is an important statement. In fact, Hebrews writer affirms this, that Esau despised his birthright. And brethren, this is like physical birthright with physical blessings. And now we are given spiritual birthright in Jesus Christ, the eternal life. Do we value our birthright, spiritual birthright? Or would we sell our birthright for pretty meaningless, worthless things of a lentil soup? Whatever physical glory, whatever physical attraction, whatever physical things that you want to satisfy with yourselves, would you sell your birthright, trade off your spiritual birthright for these physical, fleshly things and worldly things and become one of the legacies of Esau? Or are you hungering and desperate for your birthright to keep that, like Jacob? Jacob was desperate for this birthright, and Esau never valued that birthright. There are tremendous lessons behind these two types and nations. And Hebrews 12, verse 15 to 17, this is next chapter. And here Hebrews author says, looking diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and there may be thereby many be defiled. So watch out your attitude, your heart, bitterness, the negative things, envy, jealousy, competition. These are dangerous to your spiritual well-being. And he continues, verse 17, lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance. Though he sought it carefully with tears. What a sad story. What a sad story. If you or me fail to value our spiritual birthright, same thing is going to happen. Before going to Jacob, just want to check if you have any comments or anything to add to the discussion. Raymond?
He's taking a nap like I do sometimes.
Okay, we will continue. Shall I continue, or are you good? Any questions
yes.
or any comments?
For my part, please continue.
Okay. Okay, we are coming back to Hebrews. Next, chapter 11, verse 21. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped and leaning upon the top of his staff. This is the turn of Jacob when he was old and ready to die. Now it is time to pass on the birthright, so to his children. And we'll see faith of Joseph later on. We'll focus on Jacob few verses. Now, hall of faith, Jacob. Genesis 48 verses 1 to 6. And it came to pass after these things, the one told Joseph, behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. So here Joseph comes and to see his father, and he brings his two kids along with himself, and comes to Jacob, who is now very old. And one told Jacob and said, behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Jacob's name is changed to Israel by God. So Jacob or Israel are synonymous from this point. And behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Israel, that is slash Jacob, strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And he said unto me, behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a multitude of the people, and I will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. So God is coming and renewing his promise to Jacob, which he swore to Abraham, and then he swore to Isaac. Uh, oh, okay, no problem, Raymond. And it is kind of renewal. God comforts, like still you have this birthright. And even though God says you have birthright and you are going to pass it on to your kids, you have to believe in faith, right? You have to believe that to take this extra effort to bring your children, and when you are almost blind and you are old and ready to die, you have to it takes faith to bless them, to bless your kids and pass it on, that birthright. Unless you believed that birthright and unless you believed God, you don't do that. That's why Hebrews writer says, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau, and by faith Jacob blessed Ephraim and Manasseh. And now here comes like, and now thy two sons.
Igor,
Yeah.
could I ask a quick question regarding that before you move on?
Yeah.
Would you say that because there was a prophecy that the younger would inherit over the older,
Yeah.
that Jacob was demonstrating faith by doing what he did to kind of steal it, from Esau, but he was prophesied that he would. So would that be kind of like an act of faith?
It is,
Part, you think?
I think it's my opinion, it is not. Anyway,
Okay.
it would have gone to Jacob, no matter what. Jacob and need not do all this mischief, all this plotting.
So it could have been just the opposite, really, then.
Yeah, God would have
He
accomplished.
wasn't trusting God to bring it about.
Exactly. And you don't need to resort to that.
Okay, I wondered about that. That's good.
He lacked faith. That's why he did all these things. But on his deathbed, Jacob, having seen lots of sorrow in his life, that's another good study. You can do it for yourself. He cheated his brother, and he deceived and took advantage of his hunger, and he cheated his father, and he was not right with his father, and he is a big manipulator. And what you sow, you also reap. How much was he deceived in his life? He's a man of sorrows. Jacob, like his father-in-law deceives him, and several other people deceive him, and finally his sons would deceive him and sell away Joseph to the merchants so that he would be sold out to Egypt. And all his life, deception after deception, he is the victim of this deception. Uh, and God makes him go through that. How horrible and how much pain is inflicted on the receiving person. When you are at the advantageous end of deception, you don't realize how much harm you are causing, how much hurt you are causing to people. But he fully drank that cup God gave him, and he comes to a point where he realizes it is God's sovereign will gave him this birthright. We will shortly see that. And now God gives him some instructions. Bible does not record that he has to bless Joseph's two sons. not his primary sons. So grandsons. He skips his sons, goes to grandsons. This is a way fascinating. And now thy two sons, Ephraim, did that answer your question, Raymond? Any other thoughts, anybody?
I did answer mine. Yes, very good. Thank you.
Okay. And now thy two sons, now Jacob / Israel is talking to Joseph, his son, about his grandchildren. Now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine. Now it's a fascinating, strange statements. Like, I'm, I don't think I fully grasped the meaning behind this. And Jacob is claiming ownership of these two grandsons, uh, on these two grandsons. They are mine, he's saying, Ephraim and Manasseh. As Reuben and Simon, they shall be mine. So he's counting them as his sons. They are mine. And he tells a lot more, which is also fascinating. And thy issue, which thou begettest after them, so after Ephraim and Manasseh, if any other children come along for Joseph, they shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance. So any children that you beget later, but these two grandsons are equivalent to my sons. And he makes another statement. Let's see. We are continuing same Genesis 48. And Israel beheld Joseph's sons and said, who are these? And Joseph said, uh, now at this point he heard and he knew about Joseph's sons, but he has not seen them physically. Perhaps God told him already. So he knew them, kind of knowledge, but personally hasn't seen them. This is the encounter when grandsons are introduced to grandfather. And Israel beheld Joseph's sons and said, who are these? And Joseph said unto his father, they are my sons, whom God has given me in this place, that is Egypt. And he said, that is, Jacob said, bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. And now the eyes of Israel were dim for age. Same thing we see. Isaac's eyes were dim when he was blessing his sons, and Israel is now in the same shoes. Jacob saw that he could not see, and he brought them near unto them, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God has showed me also thy seed, because he thought Joseph was dead. And he believed all the while so many years, full of sorrow and full of grief. And then he finds out that Joseph is alive. And in fact, number two, in Egypt. Now he is saying, I see hand of God. I am able to see, but God is giving me double blessing. He is also showing thy seed, thy two children, my grandkids also. God is so merciful, so graceful. In spite of all the sins, all the deceptions I have done, now I have learned the lesson. I see God is greater and higher and more powerful than me, and nobody can override God's will. It's God's sovereign grace and sovereign will that brought favor to me, not my manipulations. He has learned hard way. And now Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. So he's just silently worshiping God. And then Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand towards Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand towards Israel's right hand, so that Jacob's right hand, he has oldest son, Manasseh, and Joseph's left-hand side, he positioned Ephraim, the second son, and brought them near unto them to Jacob. So that's what Joseph positioned. But famous story. And Jacob/Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim. So he crisscrossed his hands and he put right hand on Ephraim's head, who was younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evils, let that angel bless these lads, and let my name be named on them. This is very surprising. Like I sometimes I do not fully understand. Now here Jacob, whose name is changed to Israel, he places that name Israel on these two grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Technically, Manasseh and Ephraim, only they can claim Israel's name. So they are Israel. Even though Israel's other sons, they can call themselves Israelites, but the name Israel goes to only Ephraim and Manasseh. So he's okay. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon head of Ephraim, it displeased him. Now everybody in that culture, in that age, loves their firstborn, and they want this birthright to go to the firstborn. And it displeased Joseph, and Joseph trying to correct that. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused, said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed, that is Ephraim's seed, shall become a multitude of nations. So Ephraim gets the birthright, but Manasseh also gets blessed. And the word Ephraim is, the meaning comes like double portion. The river Euphrates, that also comes from the word double. Euphrates flowed with so much fertile waters and the soil that it brings. The crops were more than double. And Ephraim also, his blessings doubled as the birthright. Whoever birthright gets, his blessings would be double portion than other kids. So the Ephraim gets this. And he blessed them that day, saying, In thee shall all Israel bless. So rest of the tribes would bless themselves in these two gentlemen, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. So that becomes a proverb. Hey, may God bless you so that you will be like the beacon, the light of Ephraim and Manasseh. So that became a saying, as a proverb, as a standard of God's highest peak blessings, Ephraim and Manasseh, and set Ephraim before Manasseh. So
I think Willard has a question. Tagore.
Yes.
Willard has a question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If you'll forgive the interruption.
No, not at all.
Yeah, if I'm remembering right, from worldwide, I believe Mr. Armstrong said that Great Britain was Ephraim, and that the United States was Manasseh. And I believe he got that reversed.
I see.
Comment.
I think Bill
I can be
Hillebrunner
corrected.
also believes that,
Yeah.
same as you.
At the time he said that, of course, Great Britain was probably the greater nation than the United States, although we have certainly grown to rival that.
Right.
But we weren't nation makers, you know. You can call our states little nations if you want, but Great Britain, Canada, Australia, you know, these came out of Great Britain. These are big countries, nations themselves. Plus they made India what they are, you know, and a lot of other nations like that in Africa. So Ephraim or Great Britain, to me, was the greater nation, it seems like. But, you know, just my 2 cents worth.
He says Ephraim would be multitude of nations. Perhaps that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so I mean, that's why Mr. Armstrong thought they were Ephraim. Great Britain was Ephraim, and we were Manasseh. There's controversy over that, but that's what his thinking was at the time, I believe.
yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to.
Okay, thanks for
That's more as that was as much a question as it was a statement.
Yeah. That was still like some verses I still struggle to grasp the gravity that is behind those verses.
Mhm.
He said my name would be placed on these 2 kids and they belong to me. And then he puts name Israel on them, not on Judea, even though they also call themselves as Israel. But
well, that has a huge impact on prophecy. You know, the meaning of prophecy relates to that fact that name was put on those 2 nations.
yeah, then you can misapply if you do not know these verses. Yeah. You can go and put those things in some other people, and then you would come up with a completely different prophecy, different take on what is going to happen. So you would be looking in one direction where scriptures are taking you in another direction. So this is so important that you are familiar with the scriptures. Any other comment or? Okay, I think I heard Donna or somebody. So we'll come to Joseph. I think we'll wrap up quickly. I don't have many slides on Joseph because Joseph is a huge subject again. And then by faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave commandment concerning his bones. Joseph had tremendous faith. If you go through his story, his life story, he has enormous faith built, lots of waiting, lots of obedience, and lots of persecution and difficulties he faces. And when he was sold as a slave, his master's wife approaches him, and he says, as a young man in 20s, perhaps younger than 20s, I don't remember, he takes a stand for God and his righteousness. I can't defraud my master. And at that confrontation, he flees, runs away, flee fornication. He flees, but yet he was persecuted, was put in jail because of standing for God. So whatever false accusation that you go through, whatever unjust punishment, unjust suffering that you go through has some purpose, It is to build something in you. Never lose heart when you are unjustly accused and unjustly punished and unjustly put in a disadvantaged position. It is all going to work well, as we see in the life of Joseph. Joseph is an enormous testimony of patience and faith and perseverance and long waits, very long wait. In jail, he has to wait, wait. And finally, when God's time comes, he flips the things, he turns the things, and makes him number two in Egypt. Egypt was the empire of the whole world. That is the that is the biggest and most powerful nation in those years. And he was made number two from nobody. He was nobody in Egypt, and he was made number two. And and then he sees God's hand, and he also mentions to his brother, even though you sold me to the merchants, still I see there is God's hand, and he would bring in the famine, and then God would save you from this severe famine for 7 years. And then God has all planned it out, and we have not figured out God's plan. But now I see the providence of God, and what a great faith. And yet, being number two in God in chain of command in Egypt, a man can ask whatever a man can ask. He had it all, like, yet he did not settle and compromise for that. He was looking forward to the promised land. He was looking forward to that land that God promised to Abraham, his grandfather, and Jacob, his father. And he's fully convinced and fully convicted that is a better land, and that is the better promise, and rather than settling for Egypt. So that's why he gives a command that, please take my bones, don't bury me in Egypt. Take my bones to the promised land and bury there. What a conviction. He is not moved by physical glory. He is not moved by physical wealth. He was looking to holy, righteous God. And what God has promised, he is able to see, and he is able to demonstrate faith, and he is able to believe in that promise, counting promise of God greater than the power position in Egypt. We see this demonstrated in the next person, that is Moses, in a very dramatic way. But here, let me see one slide. And Joseph saw, that is Genesis 50, saw Ephraim's children of the third generation, and the children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were brought up upon Joseph's knees. So God has blessed him so much. He saw three generations, and what a blessing. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I died. This is mysterious thing. Like, they know when they are going to die. And Joseph say and told his brothers, perhaps he was dying young. We don't know why. He tells his brethren, maybe it's a loose word for the brethren, uh, maybe other Israelites, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land unto the land which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So he believes, he firmly believes, even though he doesn't see it now, God will yet in future take his children to the promised land. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence. So Joseph died being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. So Egyptians are known for embalming the bodies. So the bodies even lasted now in our museums. We still see the mummified bodies of those times. So they were experts in the mummification, and they embalmed Joseph's body, and it stood while Israelites were going through this slavery, through this abuse and exploitation by Egyptians, and this embalmed tomb of Joseph stood as a witness that God would deliver them from this Egypt, and God would take them to the promised land. So carrying his bones has much more we can study and say. I think we are past the time. I will take up Moses next time. With that, I will hand this over back to Raymond.
All right. Okay, Taker, thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. I was looking forward to that on Moses, but we'll listen to that next week. Rod makes a question in chat, was Israel the first person to become sick? I don't know what exactly you mean, Rod. I may be missing something there. Let me pull that up again. Was Israel the first person to become sick?
Which
Well, Israel,
is that?
Rod said that, I believe.
Rod, can you elaborate your question?
You might need to turn your mic on. I turned it off because there was some background noise. No, I'm not seeing anything.
There is a verse that he worshipped God leaning on his staff. Let me.
Well, yeah, but the first person to become sick, that doesn't make any sense because Israel came about, there's bound to have been people sick from Adam and Eve's time, I think. At least I would assume so.
I don't think that was by faith.
Must have been something else to that
when
question.
He was dying, blessed both sons of, and worshipped leaning upon the top of his staff. So he needed this staff because you remember he wrestles with Jesus Christ, and he would not let go Jesus until you bless me. After the wrestling, then before blessing him, Jesus asked that famous question, "What is your name?" Previously, his father asked him, "What is your name?" He says, I'm Esau, right? Now Jesus asks him, "What is your name?" He says, "Jacob." Now make sure you answer truthfully, and then he changes that to Israel. And then before leaving, he touches his hip, so he couldn't walk straight. Like he needed a cane kind of thing. So the staff was there with him all through. And before his death, after blessing his sons, he leans on his staff and kind of worships God and breathes last. Any more questions, comments from ladies? Okay, then we are done.